guys to an all new video of Coding Cleverly. Today's 45th video is going to be dealing with friend classes. And I know we covered friend functions in the beginning of the series, I guess the 27th video. So you could see a card on the top right corner, and possibly a lot of the concepts will be applied which were in friend functions. So let's deal with what friend classes are. A class can also be declared to be a friend of some other class. Okay, that sounds interesting. When a class is declared as a friend inside another class, all the member functions inside the friend class are accessible for the other classes. So for instance, like you could use the private data members of another class by just making it as a friend. So you have two classes, one is not a friend and the bottom one is a friend. So when you make it as a friend, you use a declaration on the top, and you could use the private data members and the private member functions of the class, similar to what friend functions were. So what this friend class does is that this is similar to how friend functions work. The friend becoming class should be declared inside the targeted class, the class which you want to share the resources with. So basically it's like a type of forward declaration we have to provide. And we also covered forward declaration, and you could see a card on the top right corner. So apart from that, now let's open up our dev C++ environment. Over here I have a skeleton already created for me. So what I'm going to do basically is include IOStream using namespace standard and int main, and inside this you have a return 0. I'm going to create two classes. So we're going to create two classes. I'm going to get a class and I'm going to call this as base class 1, and I'm going to put something inside. Okay, now after that there's a class base class, and then there has a base class 2, and I'm also going to put something inside. So what I'm going to do first is that I'm going to go in my base class 1. I'm going to have the private access specifier set, and inside I'm going to create a variable. So I would just call it as an int variable as var. Okay, so that's it. Now I go to my public section, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a parameterized constructor. Let's see. So what we do is we say base class, and we're not going to give any input parameters because it's a parameterized constructor would have input parameters, so it would have input parameters, and a default would not have. So we're going to put some input parameter, which is an int. We'll say temporary underscore variable, and what's going to happen is that the variable is going to assign to that whatever value you give. So now what we do here in the base class 2 is that we create a public section. So it's called an access specifier public : and then inside of this what we're going to do is we're going to create a function, and it's called a void get data, and what's going to happen is that it's going to get the data of it. So what we have to put inside of this open and close parentheses is the class. So base class 1, we're trying to access base class 1, so we're just create an object and what we do here is I just want to access it. So I want to say the value of var is, and we put object over here. So what basically we say is object and dot, let me put these insertion, and now we're gonna try to make it access the variable, and we know that this is not gonna help. Why? Because it's private over here and it's gonna give an error. So we're trying to do it, but we're gonna try to do it with a friend class. But right now, let's just look at our scenario, and let's see over here in the main logic, you would see that I actually didn't write it properly, so I would have to cut this out. And let me go up over here, and at the bottom over here, I'm gonna paste this main. So now this is the main logic. So what I'm gonna do here in the main logic is I'm gonna create objects. So first object is gonna be about base class 1. So base class 1, and I'll just call it object 1. So I would say object 1. And now I have an object of base class 2. So base class 2, and I would call it as object 2. And what we want here is that we want object 2. So object 2 dot, we want that function to be called, which is get data, and we want to access the variable which is over here. So we want to create a function, we want to create a class that has the capability, the power to access other classes, member functions, and member data members. How do we do that? We apply friend functions. and we also apply friend classes. So in this case, we are gonna apply friend classes here. So object 2, and we have over here the get data, and over here you have to put some kind of object. So what we're gonna do is, you could see that it says object 1. So I'm gonna say, what I'm gonna say is, I'm gonna put object 1 over here, which is the object of the base class 1. So let's try to run this. I put a semicolon here, execute, compile. First, let's run this. So you could have two errors over here. First, it's saying it's private. So the variable is private and we cannot access like we expected. So how do we solve this issue and how do we get our thing working? So what we could do here is that one thing I have to note, that you don't have to actually specify whether it's private or not without even writing the access specifier. The compiler by default introduces these as private. So what we want to do here before this is, I'm going to create a friend class declaration. So how we're going to go with this is that we're going to write the keyword friend, we're going to write the class keyword, and then the class to which we want a friend. So base class 1, we want this base class 2 to be the friends of base class 1 so they could share the resources with each other. So we say base class 1, base class 2. So base class 1, and this is base class 2. So base class 2 wants to be a friend of base class 1. And we'll just say over here that base class CLA2 is a friend of base class 1. So now let's see if this works. So we're going to try to execute. And before all of that, what we want to do is we want to assign a value to this, because we know that for a fact that we didn't assign anything over here and the compiler could give any kind of integer value to this. So we could just have a garbage to it. So when we created an object 1, we had to assign it using a constructor that we created over here. So this is which constructor was called the parameterized constructor. So now what we're going to do is we're going to apply the same thing over here. We're going to put a value. So I put 50 here. And we're supposed to see some kind of output now. So compile and run. Now you can see over here, no matching function for call to base class 1 int. So after a long time of checking what was wrong with my code, I stumbled upon this error, and I found out that in my parameterized constructor declaration, I didn't name it clearly because it's base class 1 and I forgot to add the 1 at the end. So I would save this now, and hopefully we will have a successful build. So you can have over here, the value of var is 20, and we set the value of var to 20 over here. So we could change it to anything we want. Now let's change it to 50, and now we would execute, compile and run, and you would see that the value of var is 50. So that was it with friend classes and friend functions. I hope you understood the concept behind this and also understood this programming example. Other thing is, if you have any questions or any doubts on this concept, please let me know by sending your message in the comment sections, and I will be signing off from this video and for now, and we will see you in the next one. Peace.